Hello and welcome to this Elevate 2014 webinar with Eric Edmadeas. I'm so excited to listen to Eric again. And the reason is quite easy, because I'm an entrepreneur and I met him for like 1.5 years ago, I think it was. And I'm quite a stupid entrepreneur. So when someone can teach me something, he can teach everyone something. And Eric has helped my company, Elevate, this year when we have been growing really fast to get more structure in the company and help us with a lot of stuff. And he's a really, really amazing business mentor. And I have a big idol before with Keith Cunningham, but after I met Eric, he's the new big star for me when it comes to business mentoring and also teaching entrepreneur how to succeed. And I'm 100% that it's worth your time tonight. And he's also coming to speak at Elevate 2014. So we are doing this webinar to warm you up, to those of you who are already decide to come to Elevate. And for those of you who are still wondering if you can come to Elevate 2014, this is a new chance to see how world-class speaker we have and how great the event we'll have. And Eric has shared the stage with Tony Robbins. Yeah, been shared stage with T.R. Ecker, Richard Branson, and many other speakers. I will say he's one of the best storytellers I ever met. So welcome, Eric. It's a pleasure to introduce you.
It's always a pleasure to connect with you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Now, the one thing I wanted to say is I would love for tonight, if we do this, is with some interactivity. So I know that the webinar software we're using lets people ask questions live. So absolutely, if you, on the right-hand side of your screen, if you enter any questions in there, I'd love this to be as interactive as possible instead of me assuming I already know what everybody wants to know. But to start us off, first thing, I'm very surprised by something you said, Peter Eric. You said there are some people who are not yet sure about going to Elevate 2014. I don't understand how that could be.
Not me either.
Kidding aside, where do you want to start off with tonight until we get some questions in from people? Because there's a bit of a video delay, so we might it might take a little while before they start coming in.
I'm thinking that if you can start to talk about your story and why you become a speaker and what you did before and your way to be a successful entrepreneur. If you can talk a little bit about that is really interesting.
Absolutely. You know, like many things, it was almost an accident. You know, the funny thing is I really started my first business as an accident. What I mean is that I quit a job that I had. I was living in England at the time, and I quit a job that I had, and I'd only just moved to England, so my visa wasn't approved yet, so I really couldn't go get another job, and I was stuck, and the only way to really move forward was start a business. And becoming a speaker and traveling around the world and connecting with business owners and teaching the way I do today was also another accident. And what happened there for me was that I was really I was enjoying running my business. I had reached some business freedom, so I didn't have to be at my company very much. And I was very interested in health and nutrition and energy and that sort of stuff. And so I was doing some speaking about you know, about human history and nutritional anthropology and that sort of stuff. And one day I was asked to speak at an entrepreneur expo or entrepreneur event in London, England. And I thought they wanted me to come in and talk about health and nutrition and how to get more energy to run your business and all this stuff. And when I spoke to the promoter, they said, no, they wanted me to talk about business. And I'd never spoken about business before, so I didn't really, I didn't even know how I would do a talk like that. And so when I got there, I didn't have much preparation. It was really just, I thought it was just, I would just share the kind of history of my own business, you know, how I got involved in business and how I grew it from my living room, you know, to a small barn, to a bigger warehouse, to a big warehouse, to companies, to, you know, to offices around the place and customers all over the world. And it was really interesting because when I shared this story with all the entrepreneurs that were there, it was a room of about 80 people. You know, the talk was scheduled for an hour, and then they asked me if I would stay for maybe 20 minutes afterward and connect with the audience and ask, you know, answer questions and so on. And I ended up answering questions for like an hour and a half. And it was at that talk that I realized something so important, and I realized something that would change my destiny. And what I realized is that I had forgotten how tough business can be, and I'd forgotten what it was like sometimes for people when they're running their companies and their company is demanding all their time and all their energy. And because I had grown my business beyond that, I'd kind of forgotten what that was like. And so when I was there sharing my experience with all these business owners, and I saw, I think sometimes the pain they were in, or I saw the frustration they felt with not being able to get their passion out there to people, I realized that I really wanted to help people with that. You know, that I realized I could never have done it if it wasn't for the mentors in my life, like, you know, people like Richard Branson and Michael Gerber and Tony Robbins, and people that had influenced me in such a big way. And so I just decided to make a big, you know, sort of directional change in my life, and decided that I would start teaching this stuff to people. And so it is one of the big privileges of my life right now that I get to do this, that I get to get on webinars like this, and that I get to travel around the world and connect with business owners and help them make little shifts that can move them from working way too hard and earning far too little money to having a business that gives them real freedom. And I love doing it. It's a real passion for me, and it's a real honor that I get to do it all the time.
Okay. And please, people, write some question. You can ask exactly what you want. Some problems you have in your business or whatever. I just wonder, Eric, what do you think is the biggest challenges that entrepreneur has? What is like, will make them not succeed instead of succeeding? If you need to pick one thing that you think, and how can you help these people tonight with that thing?
Wow, one thing. You know, that's a difficult question. Obviously, there are lots of different things that hold people back, but they're not. There's not 1,000 of them. You know, there's a small number of things. So it's, when I say lots, it's really not. There are some very key things that I see in patterns again and again and again when I'm working with my clients, or when I connect with people at conferences and events and so on. One of the things is that people have a hard time sometimes finding out what their mission or their purpose is, what kind of business they should be in, or what direction they should take their company in. And I think that the clearer people get about that, the better it is. I was actually watching one of the videos from Elevate 2013, and I saw Anders speaking about discipline, and he said something that really connected with me, because I speak about this a lot myself. And he said, you know, the funny thing about discipline is the only time you need discipline is when you're doing stuff that you don't like. You know, like when you're doing things you don't like, you need discipline. I have to be disciplined and do the things I don't like doing. And you know, you've heard me talk about this many times. I am a big fan of building a business that is set up and structured in such a way that your business supports you doing the things you absolutely love to do. And then, to go back to Anders, then you don't need discipline, because if you love what you're doing, you don't need discipline at all. In fact, in my life, and I know you've seen me like this, Peter Eric, I need discipline to stop working. You know, I need discipline to eat sometimes, because I love what I do so much that I don't need discipline to get the job done. I need discipline to stop doing it, because it is so much fun for me. And I think that's something that I would love to really work on and help people find, is how do they, first of all, identify what it is that they love that much that they would just do it incessantly. And then, for the people who have figured that out, how do you begin to build a business that gives you the freedom to live that way? You know, think about it like this. So many people, and I'd be curious to hear from people, like, what percentage of your day do you love what you're doing? You know, like, and what percentage of your day do you find yourself doing things that you put up with, or tolerate, or don't like, or even hate? Because what I'd like to do is suggest, how do we move somebody to a place where their business is designed that maybe today they love 20% of their day? And then how can we move them so they love 30% of their day? And then how can we move them so they love 50% of their day? And then how can we get to a point where they love 90 to 100% of what they do every day? And here's why we want to do that. Life is short. I mean, really, it is. Like I'm beginning to realize, oh, Peter Eric, my son started driving this year. I can't believe how fast time goes. Life is short. And so if somebody is spending half of their day or more not liking what they're doing, oh my God, that's wasted time. Like every hour, like if you can help somebody love what they're doing for 8 hours a day, that's like an extra 8 hours of life, I feel. And so I think that one of the things I'd like to help people with is first of all, identifying what is that passion, what do they absolutely love to do, and then how can they build a business that supports that passion so that they get to continue to do what they're doing every day. And I think one of the very big things that people can do to make that happen is to get very clear about what all of the roles and tasks are in their business. You see, what happens with so many people right now is that they just arrive at work and they do the things they know they have to do, and they react to the things that are happening to them all day long and every day. And matter of fact, a lot of people go to work and they don't even know what they're going to do that day. They have an idea, but they're going to end up reacting to stuff. Oh, I've got to do that, I've got to do this, this phone call came in, this email came in, and these things are all happening to them. And so one of the really powerful steps that people can do, and we will do a workshop on this at Elevate, but one of the very powerful workshops that people can do is to figure out what are all of the roles, what are all of the tasks in their business, and then start looking at the tasks they love, and then start looking at the tasks that they don't love so much, start looking at the tasks that they really don't like, and then start looking at the tasks that they hate, and then start creating a plan for how other people can be doing those tasks. And here's the best news of all. This was something I needed to learn so badly, so badly, is that just because you don't like doing something doesn't mean everyone doesn't like doing it. In fact, in my experience, every single task there is in my business, there is someone out there that loves doing that task. For example, I don't like doing accounting. There are people out there that really like to do accounting. And if you doubt me about this, because you see, I used to think that people who did accounting, what they were very good at was discipline. They were able to push down their hatred of numbers and focus on the accounting. No, it turns out that many of them absolutely love the numbers, and they'll just keep working on the numbers, and just like me, they'll need discipline to eat because they love it so much. And you know what I also don't like doing? I don't like all the IT, setting up websites and programming our CRM systems. I don't like doing that. It turns out there are people out there that love doing this stuff. And so that's really the good news is when you start looking at all the tasks in the day that you hate, then you start having the possibility to identify the people around you that actually like doing those things. And I think that's something that everyone could focus on. So I see Simon here wrote, he says, and Simon, you're already better off than many people. Simon is saying 70% of what he does every day he likes to do, and 30% he doesn't like to do. And of course, he wants to move to 100% is what he likes. And here's the beauty. Compared to most people, Simon's already ahead of the game, not because 70% of his day is wonderful. It's because he knows he wants it to be 100%. Many people haven't even made that decision. They haven't even made the decision that the purpose of their business is to create a wonderful life for them. And I think that's a very key thing. I see also we've got a question here from Carolina. I am just starting my business, and I'm wondering if you have any advice on how to get new clients. I'm doing HR consultancy. Wow. So Carolina, that's a very big question. There are many different answers to that, and it's something I could probably answer a lot more in person. The short version of this, though, is consider this. If you could press a magic button on your desk right now, here's your magic button. Boom. You're going to press that button, and that button would suddenly create a certain type of client for you. What type of client is that? Like, if you're doing HR consultancy, obviously you're in a business-to-business transaction, so you're selling your services to other businesses. So what I'm asking you is, what are your favorite kind of businesses to interact with? What are your favorite kind of businesses to do business with? And once you've figured that out, that by the way is a very important step, because one of the challenges is that so many people are trying to offer their services to everyone, right? Like, for example, I don't know how you do your marketing, but if you look at your website, have you designed your website so that almost any company that might need HR comes to you? And so if you were designing an ad or a social media campaign, would your campaign be designed for almost anybody, or would your campaign be designed for a very specific group of people? And here's why I'm suggesting this to you. Imagine for a minute that, Carolina, imagine you're a doctor and you're moving to Manhattan Island in New York, and so now you need to find a place to live, and so you meet two property agents, two estate agents that can help you find a new place to live. One of them comes to you and they say, yeah, I'm very good with property. I've been doing property in New York for 10 years, and I can handle pretty much any kind of property you like. Do you want a house? Do you want an apartment? Do you want to live in here in Manhattan? Do you want to live out somewhere else in New York? I can definitely help you. So you think, okay, that sounds pretty good. Then you meet the next one. And the next one says to you, I understand you're a doctor. Well, that's really good, because I am a property agent and I only deal with medical and legal transfers that are coming into Manhattan Island. And because I only deal with those people, I have identified a 20-block area that is the perfect area for doctors and lawyers moving to Manhattan to live in. And so I only represent properties in that area because I specially work with doctors and lawyers in that area. Well, the question is, if you're a doctor and you're moving to Manhattan, which of those two people gives you more certainty? I'm thinking it's the specialist. And so one of the things that you might find really helpful is to identify a very specific target market and design your marketing for that specific target market. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have other target markets. It means that once you've done a great job with that target market, now you go, all right, what's the next specific target market? And then develop marketing around that. And what you'll find is that people are much more inclined to do business with you when they regard you as a specialist. So, for example, you say, well, I'm an HR, I do HR consultancy for any companies. I don't care if you have 5 people or 5,000 people, I'm the one that works for you. Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you that as somebody, if you were talking to me, and let's say I had 500 employees, and you said, oh, I deal with all these different companies, but another HR consultancy came to me and said, oh, I specifically deal with companies that are around about 500 employees. Well, I'm more interested because they feel like a specialist. And I think this is advice that we can all pay attention to, that the more we create a niche message, the better able we are to demonstrate our ability to support that market. And as a result, people will be more inclined to do business with you. So, more questions as you want to send them in. Peter, Eric, have you got anything else on your side? Because I won't see all the questions as they come in.
No, come on, people, ask some questions. You have the opportunity, to get free answers. I remember the first time I was at a seminar listening to a business speaker, and then I've been an entrepreneur for like 8 years. And that was 2 hours I was listening to this speaker. I was thinking, oh, why didn't I get these tools when I started up? Why didn't someone in the government say that, hey, you need a business mentor? Do you use a business mentor by yourself, and how do you look at it? Like, what do you think about, should everyone have a business mentor?
I absolutely believe that everybody should have not just one business mentor, but a few. And there are different types of business mentors. Like, you can have a business mentor that you don't even know. I mean, I was very lucky that I got to meet Richard Branson, but by the time I got to meet him, he had already been my business mentor for many years. I read his books, I watched his interviews, I read his blog. I was already very fascinated by the way he was developing his business, and so as a result, he was what I would call a removed business mentor. So he's mentoring me, but he doesn't know it. And then there's another kind of business mentor, and that's like, entrepreneurs and business leaders that are in your community that you might know or that you might be able to get to. And I think you should have those people around you. And here's what's really fascinating, is people often think that that successful business people are hard to get a hold of, or how could I talk them into providing me with mentorship or coaching? And here's what's really amazing. Once you reach a certain point in your business, for many of us anyway, there becomes a desire develops in you to give back to people that are earlier in their business. And so you'll be surprised that you can reach out to, real leaders of industry in your local community, or, in other countries, even anywhere. And you can reach out to them and look to them for mentorship advice, and you'd be shocked how often they'll be willing to offer you. I'll tell you the simplest way to do it. People do this to me all the time, and I fall for it all the time. Hey, Eric, could I buy you lunch? And it's like, oh yeah, well, you know what? I know that when somebody from the audience comes up and says, can I buy you lunch? I know what that means. What that means is they want to sit and have lunch with me and get like an hour of free consulting. But the reality is that they're offering me something first, and usually when I'm on tour, I have time to spare, and so I'll often accept stuff like that. But even when I had my businesses, when I was working physically in my businesses, people would routinely, local small entrepreneurs would contact me and say, hey, can I stop by and interview for you for an hour about how you got your success in business? In fact, at one point, I even then applied and became a mentor for the Prince's Trust in the UK, so I could do organized mentorship for people. So I think you should know that the business owners that are out there, many of them want to be mentoring you. And so you have to give them the opportunity to do that. The other thing is that I think this is vitally important. There are times when we need somebody that's more than just a mentor, but even a coach. Somebody who can push. You see, a mentor, they'll come and say, here's some advice, and here's a way to get around that problem, or, I suggest you try this marketing trick, or, wow, here's a legal thing you should know. All of that's great. And sometimes you need somebody who can give you a little bit of a push when you need it. Give a little fire under your bum when you need a little extra motivation. And so having a coach is also really useful. And I think I've had coaches throughout my career, and I think it's extremely important to get somebody who's there to support, to help you and coach you. And here's the truth of it. So many people don't go and get themselves a coach. And to be clear, I am not selling coaching services. I'm not trying to suggest I should be your coach. I don't really do that. I'm telling you that it's valuable as a business owner to have a coach. And here's the joke. Many times the reason people don't get a coach is because it's expensive. I have to spend money on it. I can tell you every single time I've engaged a coach for myself, within a very short period of time having that coach, just because they push me to get a little bit more distinction about what I'm doing and take a little bit more action in the right areas, it has always for me paid itself back. So I think all of those types of coaching and mentorship are very, very important to us in business. And then there's one more. And that is having mastermind teams. Having somebody that networks with you, that, not somebody, but a group of people that networks with you and helps you with your business. And, listen, I remember once I was on stage and I was talking about business, and I just said something about entrepreneurship being a lonely game. And after the talk, my wife came up to me and she said, I don't understand how it could be a lonely game. I mean, you have employees, you have suppliers, you have customers, you have investors and bankers. How could it be lonely? And I said, you're right. It's not that it was lonely. It was that I was alone. Because when you're the owner, you're kind of emotionally alone. I mean, if you're having a bad day, or if you're stressed out or worried about your business, you can't share that with your staff. You can't share that with your investors, right? You gotta hold the fort. You gotta provide certainty. And so one of the ways that you can deal with that and end that loneliness is gather around you a team of other entrepreneurs. And what you want on your team, by the way, is some people that are doing already better than you, have a bigger business, and other people that are not quite where you're at and have a bit of an average, because you get the advantage of having some people that are pulling you along, and you get the advantage of also teaching and mentoring other people, which will sharpen your own skills. And so I'm always looking for business networking events to go to, even when I'm not speaking. Matter of fact, just like 3 weeks ago, I was at a big conference that I go to every 6 months for people that are in the speaking and mentorship and writing and author world. And I go there and I hang out and I connect with those people so that I can have a group of peers around me that can really help me get through. So coming to events like Elevate, or going to networking events like BNI, these things are really, really valuable for people, and I think everybody should be doing it.
Okay, starting to come in some questions. Thank you for that, and let the question keep coming.
Absolutely. I just want to say to Simon, who we were speaking to earlier, Simon, it was really great to meet you in Aarhus as well. And as it turns out, I don't know if you know, but I'll be back in Aarhus, I think about 2 weeks from now. So maybe we'll get to meet again. Carry on, Peter Eric, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Kari is asking, when you started your business, how did you access risk-willing financing? In Norway, it's very difficult as we don't have crowdfunding or other available funding that reduce personal risk and ensure business development to move on.
So, Kari, this is it's an interesting question, and I'm going to try and answer it in a way that provides the most value for everybody, because there's all kinds of different levels of finance that people are looking for. For example, there are some people who have inventions that or a movie or something really big that will require millions and millions of dollars to fund, and that's one type of investment. And then there are other people that have a business that will start making revenue once it kind of gets off the ground, and maybe they're looking for several thousand or 100,000 or so dollars. And then there's some people who are looking for a small amount of seed capital to just get their business off the ground. Here's what I want to say is, first of all, I always avoid raising capital from external sources as best possible as I can in small startup type situations. One of the funny things about raising money is that often the amount of effort, time, and focus that goes into trying to raise money, if that same effort, time, and focus was simply put into getting new customers, you'd make more money. Now, this isn't true in every situation, but it's been true in my life more than it's been not true. In England, for example, the first time I ever tried to get any financing, I did it through the Department of Trade and Industry, and they had a program that was designed for creating more jobs and more economy, and it was a really good program where you could borrow up to about, I think, £250,000, or at that time about $500,000 US. And so I started filling out the paperwork and meeting with the consultant and going for this interview and then going for that interview and filling out some more paperwork. And I'm telling you that after months of this, they finally approved the loan, and then they gave us some of the money, and then they were supposed to 6 months later give us more of the money, and then they were late giving it to us, and then they were 3 months late giving it to us, and by now we were running into problems, and 6 months later they finally gave us the rest of the money. But the troubles that they'd caused us in the meantime, we were worse off than before we ever had the money, and now we had to answer to them all the time. So in the end, I kind of regretted ever trying to go get the money from them in the first place. So my first message is, wherever possible, grow businesses organically and focus more on raising money through commercial activity than through raising money through investors. That said, I know it's not always practical. So let's talk about where most people raise their initial seed capital with their money or for their businesses. And it's really simply, it's called the friends and family plan. The fact is, the majority of startup money when people are starting a company really is started by reaching out to the network that knows you and connecting with your friends and family. And I want to be really clear, whether you're doing that or going out to venture capitalists, the rules are the same. If you go to people simply looking to borrow money and you have not addressed one very important thing, you will never raise money. And the one very important thing you have to address is, what's in it for them? What's in it for them? And it's not always about the money they're going to make, because the reality is very many investors realize that investing their money is risky, and so quite often people are investing for reasons other than the return, or I should say also as well as the return they want to make. And so anytime you're approaching anyone for investment money, whether it's a parent, a friend, a relative, a bank, a venture capital firm, the first thing you should be thinking about is what is really important to the investor. And once you can address what's really important to them, it'll get a lot easier for you to make a proposal to them that makes sense. So we could talk about this topic for days, but I hope this gives you just at least a starting point, and maybe if we connect in person live at one of my events one day or at Elevate 2014, we can talk in more detail about it.
Let us see. Carolina is asking, I have an ideal client description, but what are the trends? How to address the offers? How do you get in contact with them? Email, cold calls are not effective, I think.
Yeah, so Carolina, this is continuing on the conversation we were starting with Carolina earlier, and this what she's asking is a very normal marketing question that everybody is asking these days, because it's getting harder and harder and harder to get new clients. And the reason it's getting harder and harder to get new clients is twofold. There are two reasons. The one is that there are so many people and companies marketing to the public. There's just so many of them. Like, there's advertisements everywhere. There's, everywhere we look, there's some offer, some poster, some commercial. So there's just a ton of marketing out there, and that's causing some problems. Why that's causing problems is that there is a function in the way the human brain works, and it works like this. We don't notice everything that's happening around us all the time. We don't, because we can't. There's just too much stuff happening for us to see it all. And so we only notice things that are actually important to us, or that represent a threat or an opportunity. We only notice things that are important in the moment. That's why, for example, you can be sitting in a room and not notice the buzz of the air conditioner until somebody mentions it, or the spinning fan on the ceiling until somebody mentions it. We delete these things. Well, what's happened is that by and large in the Western world, people have started becoming extremely good at deleting anything that looks like a sales or a marketing message, so they don't even see it. So I would suggest this to you, Carolina. Email still works. Cold calling still works. It's the message inside the email, it's the message inside the cold call that still works. Magazine advertising still works. Radio still works. Television still works. All of these things still work. It's the old style of messaging that no longer works. And so one of the things that we have to do to get our marketing working again is we have to start being strategic. We have to start thinking about psychology and not talking about ourselves all the time. Again, this is a much longer conversation that I will absolutely be addressing in a lot more detail at all the events I'm doing this month around Europe, and of course at Elevate 2014. The short version right now is this. We have to stop talking about ourselves, and we need to start talking about what's important to them. So for example, Carolina, if you identified that a particular target market that you wanted to work with was small to medium-sized offices with 20 to 30 employees in the administration, in administrative businesses, non-manufacturing businesses. Let's say you said that's who you wanted to speak to. Well, then you have to figure out, okay, well, who is it in those companies that I would usually have to talk to? Well, it might be the business owner, let's say. Maybe not. It could be an HR manager. It could be the CFO. Who knows? But let's just say for your and my conversation right now that it's the owner. Well, what you need to start doing is thinking, what's most important to the owner right now? What's the owner interested in? What's the owner worried about? And those are the things that you want to talk to the owner about in order to open the door to have a conversation about HR. So for example, maybe right now one of the things that the owner is really worried about is, staff retention. Like, he's just having a really hard time getting good people to stay. Well, now, instead of saying, hey, I'm an HR consultant, instead what I might do with my email, my newsletter, my radio advertisement, my television advertisement, my magazine ad, my internet marketing, my social media, whatever medium I'm using, instead of saying, hey, I want to talk to you about HR consultancy, I might instead say, hey, business owners, there are 5 things you do every day that move your people closer to leaving. And I'm going to teach you how to stop doing that. Think about that, Carolina. I mean, does that catch their attention? I think it would. And so now you're earning the right to have the conversation. And that is already a major hurdle that you can overcome. So hopefully that's helpful for you. This, by the way, is part of something we teach called Inception Marketing. And we will be teaching Inception Marketing in really great detail at Elevate 2014. So hopefully if you haven't already booked, that'll entice you to come along and learn a lot more. I can tell you right now that just that one thing, if you figure that one thing out, which we call an engagement pitch, that can have a massive, massive improvement, a massive, massive increase in the level of sales that you're attracting because of one thing. Instead of your email arriving saying, hey, I want to talk to you about HR consultancy, or your website saying, hey, I want to talk to you about HR consultancy, instead your email or your landing page or whatever, your direct mail piece, whatever it is you're using, if it says something along the lines of what I said, in that case, it might be appealing directly to what's of interest to them. Now they'll read it, or now they'll listen to it, or now they'll talk to you. and then you'll be able to introduce yourself into the HR conversation. So I hope that helps out a little bit. I see some more here. I'm going to go to Magnus here. Magnus says, when you start up a business, do you strive for making your business on autopilot, or do you want to enjoy being in the business and being part of it? Wow, Magnus, this is probably one of the best questions I've seen in a long time about entrepreneurship, and more people should be asking this question the day they start their company. The trouble for a lot of people is they ask this question too late. So here's the answer. The answer to your question is yes. Okay, now I know that might seem a little confusing, but here's your question. Should you be working to build your business so that it's on autopilot, or should you be building your business in a way that you can really enjoy being in the business and running it? Again, I give you the answer. Yes, you should be doing both. What I believe is that many times people start a business around their own passion or their own skills. And the problem with that is that now they're the main delivery mechanism of the business. They're the service provider, or they're the person who's creating the value inside the business. The problem is that as a new business, now they're also having to do the sales and marketing and the administration and payroll, and they're also the janitor, and they're doing everything. And so what I'm suggesting to you is that the more your business can be run on a version of autopilot, that is that you've got great people, you've got good systems and procedures, the more your business runs smoothly, the more you can focus on the parts of the business that you truly love to do. And so that's why I say my answer to your question is both. Hopefully that helps you. Let's go to Simon. Okay, this is quite a long one. Originally, it was not my planned goal to have my own business, but that night in Aarhus inspired me to follow a little dream. Okay, so my goal is to start a mutual fund, and yes, in the meantime, I want to live my life. I should give you 3 advice about starting. Hey, sorry, guys, hold on. Okay, so if I could give you 3 pieces of advice about starting a business, and again, Simon, I could probably give you 3 pieces of advice that might be specific to setting up a mutual fund or something like that, but I want to try and keep this advice so it's more appropriate to everybody. So one of the first things, absolutely, to start at the very beginning is to make the decision that you want to build a business that will not always need you to be there. Now, this is important, and some of you are thinking, whoa, that won't work for me. I'm building a passion business, or I'm a dentist or a chiropractor, and how could I ever build a business that won't involve me? And I want to tell you that absolutely just about any type of business or practice can be turned into a real company. The difference is this: do you want to be self-employed, or do you want to run a business, or do you want to own a business? And what I would say to you is that being self-employed means owning a company that the bigger the company gets, the more the company needs you, the harder you seem to be working. So what I would rather have is, say somebody was a dentist or a chiropractor or a therapist or a coach, I would rather see them building a business that over time would get to a place that if they wanted to take a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month or a year off, that they could do that because the business continued to operate without them. And so that's the first thing, is to make the decision at the beginning that that's one of your outcomes. Now, a lot of people say that you should have an exit strategy before you start your company. I don't think that's necessarily true, because these days business changes so quickly that we don't really know what types of exit strategies might be available to us. You might want to have you take your company public, or sell it, or license it, or franchise it, or partner it with somebody, or joint venture with somebody else. Who knows? Business changes so quickly today that to try to think that you today know what your exit strategy might be 3, 4, 5 years from now, who knows? One thing we do know, though, is whatever exit strategy you might want to pull, whatever exit strategy you might want to trigger, it will be easier for you to trigger it if the business doesn't need you there on a day-by-day basis. So item number 1 is just make the decision that you'd like to build a business that won't always need you. Item number 2, identify business mentors around you that have achieved some of the results that you want to make, so that you don't have to make the mistakes that they've made. I really believe, guys, like, people are always asking, what are the biggest mistakes you've made in business? And that's because I'm always saying I've made so many. The truth is, though, the only real mistake there is in business is making mistakes that other people have already made, or that you've already made before. Because why do that? Why make mistakes other people have made? I mean, if let's say you go into a big maze, okay, you're in this huge maze and you want to get to the other end of the maze, you know, and you're walking through the maze, and then suddenly Peter Eric comes down this corridor, and you were about to go down that corridor, and Peter Eric says to you, I was just down that corridor, it's a dead end. Why would you walk down that corridor? You've just saved yourself all the time if you just listen and take the advice. And so item number 2 is make absolutely sure that you've got some solid business mentorship in your life so that you can save the time and money and not make those unoriginal mistakes, and focus your time on only making original mistakes. And then item number 3, and this is really like, please hear me on this. Absolutely manage your state of mind. What I mean is really get clear that your happiness is not related to how the external world is working, that it's not growing your business that will make you happy. It's not landing the next sale that will make you happy. You will make you happy. And the happier you are, the more effectively your business will grow. But if you reverse that exchange, if you make it that I'll only be happy when this happens, when my company grows like this or gets this sale or we hire this person, then I'll be happy, then here's what will happen. You won't be happy, ever. And that's why there are people right now, alive right now today, that have billions of dollars and they're not happy because they never understood that relationship. And so that is what I would say to you is probably one of the most important things that we as entrepreneurs can do, is recognize that our personal emotional state of mind is our own responsibility, and it's not up to our businesses to make us happy. In fact, I was just talking with one of my private mentoring clients, and it was really interesting because he's been working with us now for, I guess on and off for about a year, and his business is currently on track to be about twice the size that it was last year from a sales perspective, and that's a really big deal to him. And I said to him, well, wait a second now, how happy are you now compared to last year? And he says, exactly the same. I will get happy when it grows a little bit more. And I said, whoa, wait a minute now. If I were to go back in time and talk to you 1 year ago and tell you 1 year ago that you would now be selling the same services for 4 times as much because you've learned how to price stuff properly, if I was able to tell you a year ago that you would have twice as much business and that the only clients you were losing were the ones that you weren't making money on anyway, if I told you all that a year ago, how happy do you think that you a year ago would be? And he said, well, totally happy. And I said, so why aren't you totally happy right now? Well, because I'm waiting for this other stuff to happen. And so that's item number 3. Your personal happiness, your personal state of mind is up to you. And if that's something that you can't handle, then entrepreneurship is not for you. And I'm sure it is, because I bet you can. Magnus asks here, what made me go solo instead of working as an employee? Magnus, I think this happens a little bit differently for everybody. In my case, it was kind of a funny set of circumstances that I'm really grateful for today. I was the first employee in a high-tech startup in Vancouver, Canada, first full-time employee in this high-tech startup in Vancouver, Canada. And when I went to go work for this company, I was a kid. I didn't know anything. And very quickly, the one skill that I had, and that was sales and marketing, that skill started translating into being really valuable for the company. And so I was doing very well. I was making very good money, and the company was growing aggressively. And before I'd come along, the owner of the company had struggled for the previous 2 years. I mean, he'd done well from a, as a one-man company, he's doing okay, except that every time he tried to grow it, it just wasn't working. He'd hire people, they wouldn't work out, they couldn't sell, they couldn't, And so when I joined the business, it really created a moment where the business could create a big shift. And over the next 6 years, we'd grow the company to about 150 people in 4 countries. And in the early days, the owner had often talked about how there'd be share options and opportunities to share in the growth of the company. And I thought, how exciting! I'd heard all these stories about about tech companies, and if you're early on, you can make millions of dollars. And so after a couple of years, I started asking, what's going on with all that? And it turned out nothing was going on with all that, because you see, what happens a lot of times is people make promises that they really can't, that they're not going to deliver on. In fact, there's a book out there called Big Promises and Little White Lies, and it's all about entrepreneurs making a promise when there's no value, and then when there's value, they don't follow through. And that's what was happening. And so my employer at that point decided to deal with that by offering me a new share package in the European. If I would go to Europe and launch the European company, then I would be a partner. Then I would get shares. And so I went to Europe and I hired the crew and I got the new manager and I released some space and I kind of got the whole thing started. And I'd been in Europe for about a year. And then when my contract came over, there were no shares in it. And I asked why there were no shares in it, and my boss at that point told me that it's like funny when people don't want to take responsibility for their decisions. It's the grand we have decided that there's a new way we should do this. And so I responded to him that we had decided that we were going to quit our job and leave. And so I did. And it was one of the scariest things in the world for me, Magnus. It really was. I was terrified. I mean, I was 25, 26 years old, and I was earning a lot of money. I was in a brand new country. I had just gotten married. I had a new baby on the way, and I had a new car. I mean, I had a new dog. Everything was new, and I didn't have a job. And to make matters worse, I had just moved to England. I'd been living in Ireland for a year, and now I'd moved to England. I didn't have a visa in England yet, so I couldn't even get a job if I wanted to. And so I wish I could tell you that I started my first business because I was very brave, and I was very tough, and I was very determined. I started my first business because my employer, who owed me a whole lot of money when I left, didn't pay me. And the only way I could pay the rent was by starting a business and buying and selling equipment that I was familiar with. And so it was purely by accident. Now, I will say this, that a couple of weeks later, my employer's biggest competitor in Europe at that time called me. They'd heard that I'd started my own business, and they'd heard that I'd left my old job, and they called me up and they offered me a job. And I explained about the visa issue, and they said, don't worry, we're a big public company, we can take care of that, we'll get you the visa. They offered me, and now remember, I'm 26 years old, I think. They offered me 90,000 British pounds a year, which is at the time about $170,000, and a really nice company Mercedes. And I'm sitting here with my business that's 6 weeks old, and I'm barely, I have no idea what's going to happen. And Magnus, I did something really tough that day. I turned that job down. I turned the job down, and the reason I turned my job down is after 6 years of allowing my destiny to be in the hands of somebody else, I decided that I wanted my destiny to be in my own hands. And it was one of the toughest decisions I ever made, and I will tell you I regretted it many times over the next 2 or 3 years when the business wasn't going the way I wanted it to go at times. And I can tell you, though, that very soon after that I became totally grateful. And of course today I am infinitely grateful that I made that decision. Entrepreneurship is, to me, the ultimate expression of personal freedom. And when it's done properly, that's exactly what it is. And that's why I do what I do, to help people make the shift. Because so often people want that personal freedom when they start a business. And then they make a couple of small mistakes and they end up trapped in their business. And I consider myself privileged that I get to help people out of that mess. So thanks for that question. Maybe you can help me, Peter Eric. There's one here from Jette, and I think she's written it in Norwegian, and I can't do that.
Yeah, I can do it. It's in Danish, but I can still do it.
Oh, it's Danish. Okay, sorry.
I'm on the way to build up my vision, and beside that, I should not be a leader, or I don't want to be a leader. And to get the company up or get the place I'm now up, I have to be a leader. I'm really nervous, and I am looking to find a leader that has passion for my vision. How can I get more opportunities, or do you think I can get more opportunities with making a concept that have all the sides of my vision in it?
Okay, so I'm not 100% sure of the question, but what I'm going to address is this, is that being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, is fundamentally a position of leadership. It's not necessarily a position of management. And so quite often many entrepreneurs can be really great leaders but not necessarily good managers, or they can be good managers but not good leaders, or they might not be good managers or leaders but they're really creative and they're really good at getting stuff started. Here's the challenge, is that we have really a bunch of different psychologies. There's a bunch of different types of entrepreneurs out there. You know, you've got a guy like Warren Buffett who makes all his money buying companies, just investing in stuff and holding on to them. And then you've got people like Richard Branson who, you know, really focus their effort on creativity, and it's all about starting new stuff but not managing it. And then some of you might be familiar with Jack Welch, who ran GE for all those years and made millions and millions of dollars running somebody else's company. So there's all these different personality types relative to the type of business that you should start. So Jette, in your case, you know, it'd be interesting to find out where your core strengths are, and as a result of that, two things. One is learning how you can then work to attract the people who have the strengths that you don't have, and in the short term, how you can fake those skills until you've managed to get somebody else. In other words, how you can develop those skills, even if it's uncomfortable, until you've managed to attract in that leader. Here's the main thing I want to suggest to you, is that let's say, for example, you're quite a creative person and you're looking for somebody who can really get on, you know, really catch on fire about your project and get it out there and manage the team. And well, then what that means is that you might need to catch them on fire. You might need to be the one that initially gets them excited, even if that's not in your personality. But here's the good news. Once you do get them excited, then they will be much better at taking that message out. They'll be much better at providing that leadership in your business. One of the things that we're going to be talking about at Elevate 2014 is that there are really 8 very distinctive models of entrepreneurship, and one of them is specific to you. And so I'm going to be helping people identify, hey, which one is yours? And then as a result of that, how do I build a great team around me so that I can do what I'm strong at and so that I can attract the right people around me? And so if I haven't helped you very much right now, I hope I have, but you will definitely be getting more help in the events to come.
Cool. Then we have a question here. Where is the best place to meet customer and partners?
Where is the very best place to meet
customer and partners?
Customers and partners. Well, you know, I'm going to use a really silly example, but whoever asked that question, who was that? What was their name, Peter Eric?
Magnus.
Let me know when you got it.
Magnus.
In any event, here's what I want to suggest to you. I'd like you to imagine that you and I are, you know, it's 100,000 years ago, and you and I are off in Africa, and we need to go hunting, and then I say to you, you know what? Today I'd really like to have a wildebeest. I'm craving some wildebeest, and then you would say, well, wow, we got to figure out where the wildebeest are. So then we take a look at wildebeest, and we'd say, well, where do they hang out? You know, where do they eat? Where do they like to get water? And then we'd go find them. Well, this basic hunting principle is exactly the same way that we can work with finding partners and finding customers. So for example, let's say you want to meet people that are interested in, let's say, alternative healthcare. You know, people, massage therapists and aromatherapy people, and people into supplements and health and all that kind of stuff. Well, then one of the things that you'd want to do is go and find conferences and fairs where those people are hanging out, because they're all in one place. Or you might find the kind of forums that they hang out on, like LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn, and there are people on there. Like, you know, for example, I'm a member of a bunch of forums on there for professional speakers. I run a leadership program where I take people up Kilimanjaro every year. I'm a member of a bunch of the Kilimanjaro forums so that we can all share strategies on how to climb the mountain and stuff like that. So if you want to meet people, you go on to places like LinkedIn and Facebook and find the groups where those people are hanging out and talking. And I can tell you this, my favorite thing, because this comes down to developing a mastermind team and a peer group for me, my favorite thing in the world to do is to go to networking events, business networking events. So you might be familiar with Business Networking International, BNI. That's a fabulous place to go, because not only are you meeting other business owners, but you're meeting other business owners that are going to focus their efforts to help you get new business. I really like going out to events where there are speakers, because then what happens is that I'm first of all going to learn from the speaker. Secondly, I might get to meet the speaker, but thirdly, that's going to stimulate a conversation amongst all the members that are at that event. And you know, I have to say this. I mean, it's a natural place for a plug here. one of the things that I would definitely do, especially in Europe, is I would find pan-European events, because these days business is no longer just a local neighborhood thing, it's an international venture. And so I would find pan-European events where I could really go and network and connect with people. And so obviously a really great example of that this year would be Elevate 2014 in Oslo. There are going to be several hundred entrepreneurs of all different sizes of different businesses, and it's going to be a great opportunity to connect with them. So hopefully that's both a good answer to your question and a nice little plug for Elevate.
Okay, I need to ask you one more question, Eric. Why
Sure.
did you decide to come and speak on Elevate?
Well, I will tell you that. It's really simple. I get invitations to speak at events all over the world, and there are lots of reasons I might choose to speak at an event. I will tell you one of the reasons might be my speaker's fees, and another reason might be that the audience is a particular audience that I'd like to connect with, and so on. The one type of event that I don't really go to very easily or very often is events that are going to have many speakers. And the reason that I often avoid events like that is that my experience is that quite often those events are more focused on selling and marketing stuff than they are on giving genuine value. And so what happened when I first heard about Elevate, I didn't know anything about it. I heard about Elevate, and I heard that my good friend Janet Atwood was there, and there were other, and Brendan Burchard was there, and I heard some really good things about it. Still, though, in my mind, it was a multi-speaker event. When I started meeting people that had been at Elevate, I realized that it was something different than that. That it was almost like a retreat. That it was personal and business development summer camp. That it was fun. And this is the thing that really got me. When I found out that 60% of the people that went to Elevate last year signed up immediately to go to the next year, and they didn't even know who the speakers were, I said, that's the kind of event that I want to be at. And so, I mean, Petarek, you already know this. I agreed to speak there even before there'd been any discussion about fees or any of that kind of stuff. I said, yep, I'm in. I'll make it work. It's an event that I am really, really excited about being at, and I really hope that you guys will join us there. I just want to say hi to a couple of people that I noticed here. I'd love to say hi to Bjorn, and I want to also say hi to Magnus. Magnus, yes, I'm also looking forward to seeing you in Las Vegas. That's going to be a lot of fun. Magnus, I think you're in the UK at the moment. You would love Elevate, knowing you as I do. So I hope you'll join us for the Elevate conference as well. And Bjorn, I saw you had one more question in here. This is a good question to end on, I think. Bjorn says, how do you avoid competing on price when you're in a very competitive business with fierce competition? So Bjorn, I'm going to do something a little sneaky here. I'm going to give you an answer, and I'm going to tell you that I'm going to answer this question so effectively at Elevate that you'll never have this challenge again. The short version is this. One of the reasons that people end up in fierce competition, as you've put it, is that they are really trying very hard to compete for all the same customers. In other words, there's a very small percentage of the market that's ready to buy whatever you're selling right now. They're out on the streets. If you were to walk down the main street of your town and walk up and say, hi, are you interested in this? Hi, are you interested in this? There's a certain percentage of the population that is interested in that. And most of our marketing, most of our websites, our SEO campaigns, our direct mail campaigns, our brochures are designed to try to catch the attention of people that are already buying. And since that's a very tiny percentage of the market, everybody's trying to get those people. That's where fierce competition comes from. And so what we want to do is figure out that there's another way more than 90% of people that are absolutely great buyers if we have a really solid strategic way of getting to them. And that's how we stop competing on price. We use what we call inception marketing to expose our message to a much broader audience so that we're not having to compete on price with all the people that are already talking to our competitors. There's a great book out there that you might want to read in the meantime called Blue Ocean Strategies. And the metaphor is this. Most companies are operating in the red, blood-churned ocean of competition where everybody's trying to feed at the same time. And yet, there are thousands of miles of blue oceans where nobody's fishing. And that's what I want to teach you to do, is to fish in those places. And one of the ways that you do that is you start aiming your marketing away from, or it's not that you stop trying to get the ready buyers, it's that you start developing strategic campaigns to convert non-buyers into buyers. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Bjorn, and hopefully I get to share more with you in the future.
Thank you. And for those of you who want to see Eric, he's going to go to Reykjavik in Iceland the 13th of September, Tromsø the 22nd of September, and I also think you're speaking in Tromsø the 24th of September with a wild fitting. Oslo 23rd of September, Gothenburg 24th of September, Trondheim 25th of September, Bergen 26th of September, Stavanger 27th of September, and it's also an event that we made yesterday, which is in Stockholm the 17th of September. And the thing is here, all this, we'll send you a link after this webinar, and all this you can get free access since you are on the webinar tonight. And that's 4 hours with Eric, where he will talk more about it, what he likes to do. So it's a 4 hours free evening with Eric. How good is that?
That sounds excellent. I'm in. I'll be.
Yeah, me too. And I also look forward to have you on Elevate. And the thing with Elevate is that we have Eric, who is a business speaker, and then we have Rich Sheffren, and he's maybe the most genius online marketing expert in the world. He's the guy who have teach Frank Kern, Bren Bouchard, and all these things, all this stuff. And he got famous because he took 10 entrepreneurs and he was going to give them 1 year with coaching to see what he can do for them. And all these entrepreneurs had over $100,000 in revenue on online marketing. They started from scratch, all of them. And he's also used by Yahoo and others. And people say that he's the genius that always knows what will come into next year in online marketing. And then we have Janet Atwood, who Eric talked about, who is a good friend of Eric. She has written the book Passion Test, and she will give you a passion test workshop at Elevate. And then we have Anders Haglund, who is a Swedish speaker. He was the best voted speaker last year, and he's talking about stop believing in your thoughts. Quite easy. And what else we have? We have a David Wolf. We'll talk about health and nutrition, so how you can sleep less and get more energy in your life like an entrepreneur. And then we have a branding expert from Iceland, who is she has been on Oprah Winfrey show. So we have many speakers, and they all get a lot of time on the stage. And I'm so excited because we have moved the conference to a place where everyone can sleep and stay. So it will be a lot of networking, and we have our own networking party on Saturday. And so I'm so excited. We are already over 500 people. We hope we'll reach 1,000. And for all of you who are entrepreneurs, just do it. I will promise you it will worth your time, and you will meet so many great people. And here's the thing. Eric is a great speaker, and all the other speakers are really amazing. But in 2 years' time, you will say to all the people when you talk about the event that it was because of the people you met there. So, and I will give you 2 tickets for the price of 1 tonight if you sign up, and I will send you the link for signing up after. I hope to see you on one of these free workshops, and all of you come to Elevate. And Eric, do you have something you want to add? You're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
I thought we would try lip reading this time. I just wanted to say that I enjoy doing this. I appreciate people investing their time and joining us here on the webinar. I'm hoping that I've been able to give you some distinctions that might make a difference to you in your business, and I really hope that we get to continue the journey together. So as Peter Erik said, I've got events all through September that we have a chance to connect at. I'll be coming to all kinds of cities, and Peter Erik's listed off a bunch of them. And definitely, guys, I'm really hoping that you'll come and hang out with us at Elevate. It's going to be a real party and a lot of fun and a huge amount of value. So we'll see you in Oslo and in other places as well. Thanks very much for being here tonight. Peter Erik, thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to seeing you again in a couple of days as well.
Thank you so much also, Eric. Look forward to see you. And thank you for everyone who's coming to show up tonight. So, and have a nice evening, everyone.